Hello and welcome to the Quietly Visible podcast. I'm your host, Carol Stewart, founder of Abounding Solutions and author of Quietly Visible, Leading with Influence and Impact as an Introverted Woman. This is the podcast for introverted women who want to thrive as leaders and in life. And also for those of you who want to be your authentic self. You're tired of putting on a mask or pretending to be something that you're not, and you want to thrive as your authentic self. Now, today I have with me Sharon Brown, and she's a self-care strategist, a licensed mental health professional, and the visionary founder of Self-Care U Academy. And with over 2 decades in the mental health field, Sharon now specializes in helping individuals, especially leaders and entrepreneurs, sustain their success while safeguarding their well-being, a topic which is very important, I think. Her journey began with a personal reckoning, realizing that self-care isn't just a luxury, but a vital foundation for leadership and legacy. And I think that is really important because one of the things that I often find is that self-care gets put to the bottom of the list. People say that they're going to make it a priority, but when they're busy, it always gets put to the bottom of the list. And what we're particularly going to be focusing on is the power of rituals, which explains why rest, reflection, and rhythm are essential to long-term success for introverted women leaders. And the power of rituals addresses emotional fatigue, decision overload, and productivity overwhelm, while being present for your team as you experience personal challenges. So hello, Sharon, and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, I really love that, the power of rituals. Because a lot of times when it comes to like our personal lives, it's one of those things that we do tend to put on the back burner. And personally, sometimes I feel like, well, if I have rituals, people think rigid, and that's not what rituals are. And then
Mm-hmm.
sometimes people think that it may not allow them to be authentic and not be themselves and
Mm-hmm.
not be spontaneous. But in actuality, ritual helps you to be authentic,
Mm-hmm.
spontaneous yourself, because without it, that's how, like, when the pressures of life, or like when you're working, that productivity, when it gets like busy, it can remove us from being ourselves. And so when it comes to rituals, it really gets you back to being connected with yourself, because there's a baseline, there's a rhythm, there's something
Mm-hmm.
about you that's still there, even though there's other things that may be going on.
Great, thanks. And so before we unpick all of this, tell us a little bit about who Sharon is.
Yeah. With myself, for those of you who don't know me, I am Sharon D. Brown. I'm the founder of Self Care U Academy. And pretty much with Self Care U Academy, it was pretty much born out of my own experience. At least there's a combination of things that led to that, but it's from my own personal experience that led to self care. I
Mm-hmm.
kind of always felt like, oh yeah, I exercise and I eat, but then when in experiencing personal stressors, it can lead to, like I say, other things, and then you can kind of lose yourself and all of that. But
Mm-hmm.
along with that, I am a licensed clinical social worker and have been in the field for over 2 decades, and with that, have learned so much about one, myself, but also about people, behaviors, kind of like how people think because of their patterns and everything. And all of that has also led to the Self Care U Academy. And above all, I really love learning. So I love sharing my experiences, and especially for those who are entrepreneurs and executives, and those who are over employee wellness, because I truly believe the more that we take care of ourselves with whatever purpose that we have on this earth, it allows us to be ourselves as well.
Mm-hmm. Great. So you said that it was born out of your own experience. So tell us a bit about what your experience was.
Yes, yes. Several years ago, there was a breakup. I was in a relationship, then there was a breakup, and it wasn't expected. I think that's probably what has stuck me the most. And so
Mhm.
I literally was crying for 40 days and 40 nights. And for me, even though I'm a therapist, I really felt like that talk therapy just wasn't going to do. I mean, my heart rate was up and I was exercising, but I needed something to calm down. And so what I ended up doing, I had registered for a yoga class. And when I registered for it, I really did like it and I wanted to learn more. And so from there, I ended up registering for yoga teacher training. And then also, along with that, with yoga, it's very personal. And so I learned a lot about myself and wanted to share it with others. And then the other part of that is that I also was still focusing on how I can help others in different ways. And so I ended up, registering for different things and it ended up
Mhm.
where it really helped me. But the core of it, some of it did start from my own personal, grief, my own personal experience. And then it led to something because what I saw as a therapist is because my specialty is in crisis work, and so it's kind of like, why are people here in this emergency room? Why is this person calling the crisis line? What's going on? And
Mhm.
so what I saw from there, even though there's a lot of different variables, but the missing piece is the daily rituals, the daily things that people can do
Mhm.
on a daily basis to take care of themselves before they get to that point. It's not even the we always talk about being proactive and being, preventative work. It's even before that. I kind of call self-care the proactive, the pre-preventative, because it's the
Mhm.
things that you can do to nourish yourself on a daily basis.
Right, okay. And so leading up to that period in your life, were you practicing self-care, or was it that you were just on the go constantly, that you didn't notice that the relationship was breaking down?
Yeah, what I would say is that I wasn't practicing self-care to that extent, because pretty
Mhm.
much I was eating healthy, I was exercising some, and even, like in my life at that particular time, the other part of it too, like with my parents, they've had a long string of medical complications, medical challenges, medical mayhem for a period of time, you know?
Mhm.
And so the other thing is, I would say, because, and even with my job being, like busy, and working in crisis work, um, it didn't bother me emotionally because I've always been able to separate that. I've been good, but in not really noticing the impact that it has on your body energetically,
Mhm.
in that sense. And so sometimes I just kind of say, when there's so many different things that you can have going on, and especially because I would say this, I didn't have moments of reflection in my life, because that's a form of self-care too, is to be able
Mhm.
to reflect and take notice. Because me and my partner at the time, we both were busy. They were in school, and they were working, and so it was pretty much, it was almost like in misinterpreting. And the other part of it too, if you think communication is there, but if someone just doesn't open up, you don't know,
Mhm.
so I would say is, even though my own reflection of really looking at myself and seeing where I am and being honest with that, so that form of self-care at that particular time wasn't there. And the thing with yoga, what it allows you to do, it allows you, to sit back, to get in touch with yourself, and to pretty much reflect.
Yeah, and I think that reflection piece is so important because it's something that I see time and time again with women leaders, and not just women, men as well, not making that time for reflecting. And they've got demanding jobs, they may have got families that they're caring for, or other caring responsibilities. Um, and they're just on the go constantly, but they're not stopping and reflecting what's going on. And as you said, they may be feeling that emotionally that they're doing okay, but that saying the body keeps the score.
Hmm.
It does eventually show up, doesn't it, in
Yeah,
some way
it
or
does.
another? Mhm.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the other thing is too with reflection, it really does allow you to be able to take a look at yourself. It doesn't quite mean because sometimes I think people are afraid because sometimes people look at it as like, oh, you're bad or something is wrong with you. No, it's just another part of you, and we have so many different aspects and parts of ourselves.
Mhm.
And the thing is, I would say this is that as I was healing and recovering, the one thing that did come up, because like even though I cried for 40 days, for 40 nights, the first week was about the person. After
Mm.
that, I had to figure out why I was crying. Why did it hurt so much? And as I got deeper, then I realized it was daddy issues. I grew up without my dad. I never had any ill feelings about him, but one of the things I think we don't realize that it can still have an impact, in our
Mm.
lives. And so as we go deeper, and the meditation piece of it allowed me to go deeper and deeper within myself once I really sat down and went several layers deep so that I can get to know myself and really get down to the root. Because even if I would have gone to, should I say, continual counseling, it may have surfaced, but there's a difference of knowing something and really coming into terms with it, because we can intellectually say something, but to really have that true
Mhm.
revelation, we have to really sit in it. And that's what yoga and
Yeah.
meditation and being able to reflect allow
Mhm.
me to do.
Yeah. And some people are afraid of sitting in it because they're afraid of it, but because they've never sat in it,
Mhm.
they are afraid of what, not necessarily um, thinking about, well, sitting in it it will eventually, the intensity will eventually fade. But so they avoid it or they try and control it. And I see this time and time again that people, they try and control the feeling, they try and control the emotion rather than allowing it to just sit. Um, and that's something that I do in my coaching using a sort of acceptance and commitment coaching, where people, getting people just to accept and sit with it. Mm.
Yeah, that is so
Yeah.
true. And then if you don't mind me adding, the other part I want to add to that, and which I've seen clinically of why some people don't do it, and even when I was experiencing myself,
Hmm.
in the sitting, sometimes it's the emotions and everything, but it's also what it does to the body. Because like
Hmm.
like at some point, during the 40 days and 40 night, like I was sick and tired of myself crying for 40 days and 40 night. And then one day I was really crying really, really hard. And I got sick and tired of it, and I really sat in it. And when I was sitting in it, again, and I was able to go deep within myself. And so, in saying that, sometimes physically it doesn't feel good, but when you're
Hmm.
able to take that breath and sit in it and to go within your soul, then that helps you to go deeper and to be able to reflect. But kind of to your point when you were saying, the body keeps score. If the body keeps score, we got to go to the body, and so that's really the main point, because a lot of times people run away from that because it doesn't feel good. It feels like it's
Mm.
too much to handle, but you're able to do that, with your breath.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The breath is powerful, isn't it? Do you
Hmm.
want to tell us a little bit about how or what, what your sort of understanding of why the breath is so powerful?
Yeah, pretty much with the breath, it's kind of one of those things. I would say this. One, it's how we have life, when we first, are born, and of course, even when we end. But in between there, we don't realize how important the breath is, and it's connected to our nervous system. Because if we're always so busy, or there's stressors, if there's a breakup or separation or whatever it may be, if we're always going, going, going and not pacing ourselves and taking the time to have that deep breath, in that we're training the body to pretty much to always be on the go. And if it's always on the go,
Mm.
it gets stuck in survival mode. And if it gets stuck in survival mode, it doesn't know how to slow down. And so it's really overworking itself. It's like, even though you may have to still go back and do the same thing, but if we don't give our body, our mind, our spirit, our soul a break to be able to recover, to restore itself, and to reset and recover, then it's pretty much, it can cause some other things down the line. And it's like, if you can
Mm.
do 5 deep breaths, I always like to say, if you can do it for 5 minutes, that's really good. But if you can't, at least take 5 breaths. And if you can do that 5 times, you can really reset yourself, so that whatever is going on around you, you're able to see clearly, hear clearly. And especially for those individuals who are in leadership roles, and everything, you're able to make good, clear, decisions, and you don't feel like that you're in overload. So taking that breath is just, it's just so important. You either energizing yourself,
Mm.
or you're allowing yourself, to relax. And you can, there's different types of breath work that you can do, because it really depends on what your need is at that time.
Mm. Moving on to rituals and the power of rituals, um, and how you described it earlier. Some people may think, oh, a ritual is something which um, it's something that it's something that that they have to do. They have to do religiously. And but the way that you described it as part of self-care, I liked how you described that. So tell us a bit more about how it's incorporated into self-care and not something that you have to do because you have to do it. Like it's a something that you have to do religiously, and you just do it for the sake of doing it because it's something that you have to do, but how you do it, and it's something that you get to embrace because you recognize the benefits.
Yeah, yeah. That's the thing. It's kind of like, the more you do it, then you experience the benefits of it. You wouldn't want to do without it. And so when
Mm.
I would say this, when you're able to look at it more so of how it can benefit you, not that it's a feel good, because sometimes I think some people think it's a feel good thing, or
Mm.
even though sometimes I try not to say, that you have to do it, but it's beneficial for you to do it, in and of itself. But when it becomes a part of you, then you don't want to do without it. And I would say this, because like, even though I know this as a therapist, but as I continue my own learning, not just with continuing education for my, field, but also just personally, I'm just naturally, drawn to things when it comes to the mind, when it comes to consciousness. But another reason, like when it comes to rituals, to have that in place, in that because of what we deal with when it comes to the world, it can extract our being, it can extract our spirit and soul. So with rituals, it helps you to retain that, it helps you to restore that. So when we, whether it's a word or the word, whatever it is that we have affirmations and different things that we may read or tell ourselves, one of the reasons that it's important for us to do that is because, again, the world can extract that. So it's more so, it serves as a force field to help feed and fuel our soul. Because if we're not feeding and fueling our own self, the world, and it's not that it's intentional per se, but we're part of a system in and of itself. And so the best system that we have is our own system. So it's like it's doing everything that we can to protect and reserve that for ourselves, but then so that when it comes to our loved ones, we can be the most caring and loving being for them. And so that's where the rituals come in, because it helps you to remember you. And so we're not remembering ourselves with our rituals like, oh yeah, let's pour this, let's pour that, let's do this. So we can have remembrance. So when the hard stuff, the chaos, the crisis come, it won't, I'm not saying it won't happen at all, because it can, because it depends on the chaos and the crisis, but it will at least allow us to maintain of our baseline and not put us under the baseline. So yeah, when it comes to rituals, it's just something that's really beneficial, and it helps us to stay us, because the more you don't do it, then you strive away from it, and that's how we ended up being, so much chaos and things.
Yes. And the thing is, we have rituals for many other things. So, one thing that comes to mind is like brushing our teeth. That's a
Yeah,
ritual that we do morning and night,
it is.
which we've done from as soon as we got teeth coming through as
Mhm.
children. Um, and it's so something that is so embedded that we don't even think about it. But if we didn't do it, there would be severe consequences for
Yeah,
our teeth and for our oral health. Yeah.
that is so
So,
true.
so what sort of rituals do you recommend for self-care, particularly for introverted women who are leaders in busy roles, who are overstimulated a lot by their work because of all the stimulation that goes on around them, the back-to-back meetings, being in groups of people, and the energy drain that it puts on them?
Yeah, one ritual that I like to say that can be really beneficial is one of my signature framework is Take Five to Thrive Wellness Boosters, and pretty much it's on the premise of breathing, movement as well, so that you can be authentic in and of itself. They're not really steps, but they're more of, I guess you could say, um, again, it's part of a framework, but you can focus on one
Hmm.
particular one, let's just say when it comes to breathing. So one ritual can be like in between meetings is to make sure, well, try to make sure, again, if it's at least 5 minutes, if not 5 minutes, again, it may be 5 breaths, so you can create a space for that, because you're right, when it comes to too much stimulation, that can put your nervous system in overload, and when it comes in overload, and then all kind of different things happen. And so one ritual can be is to plan out, what do you want to focus on? So okay, this week or today I want to focus to make sure that in between meetings that I can sit down and just sit, and just breathe, or you can listen to something, like whatever that is for you, but it's more so something to interrupt the constant meeting, so you can have time to be able to reflect.
Mm, yeah. And so breathing is one. What else would you suggest?
Yeah, with breathing, with prepping and preparing, because sometimes we may prepare for one thing, but not prepare for something else. So by
Hmm.
preparing, that helps you as well because you know what's ahead, whether that's planning like something you put on the schedule, but then also it can be something in which let's say for someone who may have a family to be able to plan out, let's say your meal, or to be able to you can write it out, but meal prep is even more so important. I always try to look at things that's more personable because the more personable that it is, such as the breathing, such as, let's say, walking, such as being able to write things down, or even to be able to, we talked a little bit about it, to be able to reflect. But the main thing is to create that mental space, because the more mental space that you have, then it decreases that stimulation that can come, by, just being overly stimulated. And so the
Hmm.
main thing I would say too, when it comes, is just pay attention to yourself. Because a lot of times, to be honest, what I've seen as a therapist is that most of us have self soothing things that come naturally to us,
Hmm.
and so that can be, we may rub our arm or something like that. Do more of that. I always like, I use this as an example. I was like, it may not always be a good example, but it explains it really well. It's like for individuals who may suck their thumb. I mean, we know it's not good to suck the thumb, mainly because of what it does to the teeth. But other than that, for individuals who do suck their it is a self-soothing thing, and then not only that, it also activates the meridians, and it just helps, decrease, any anxiety or anything else. But it is something that is very self-soothing, and so the other part of it
Hmm.
too. I'm just saying, that's not the best because of what it does to your teeth, but pay
Hmm.
attention to yourself, because the other thing is, when it comes to some of the self-soothing behaviors that we may have, society may say, well, why you got to rock? Why you're doing that? Be confident of who you are and just know there's nothing wrong with you, with anyone that does that. You're naturally taking care of yourself the same way, especially, for individuals who have children, the same way a mother will pretty much soothe a crying child. So that's another way of looking at it
Mm.
too.
Yeah. And so for somebody who's not got rituals that they do, how would they go about identifying and putting something in place so that it becomes a ritual?
Yeah, pretty much one of the ways that they can identify of putting something in place. This is, again, sometimes for, especially for individuals who are overly stimulated, sometimes they're like, oh, it's hard for me to sit down. What I will say is to identify those things that you enjoy, because a lot of times, if you at least do something, whether it's listening to music, that can kind of help, kind of like calm your nervous system down, or I want to say settle it down, because we do need time to think. Because when you're
Mm.
able to think, you're able to see. And then when you're able to see, then it's like, oh, this is what I like. Because the other thing is, someone else can really like listen to you. And, just as a therapist, sometimes we can make suggestions, but sometimes it just may not fly because it may not be some things just may not be naturally inclined for that person. Some things
Mhm.
outside of being naturally inclined, it can be, very beneficial. But if anything, I would say to be able to sit still, because the more that you're able to do that, then the more you're able to get to know yourself, and to be able, again, to, we kind of talked about a little earlier, to reflect. Sometimes, again, individuals like, that's just too much, and I just can't do that. Again, even if you can't completely do it, I would say just a little bit, and
Mhm.
then give yourself one grace for what you're not able to do at that particular time, but also give yourself gratitude of what you're able to do. Because the more that you're able to accomplish things, and then the more you will, be able to do it as well. But the main thing is to be able to sit in silence, to take notice of yourself, and to be able to reflect what those things is. Because what I have found, in that, professionally and even personally, is that a lot of times we don't take enough time with ourselves to discover what do we like, what works and what doesn't work. And then to be able to practice too, because when it comes to rituals, part of it is the rituals in and of itself, but more so it's the repetition of the rituals that's going to really be the most beneficial for us.
Yeah, and that being consistent with it consistency, you'll start to reap the benefits of doing it. So there's no point just doing it the once and then that's it for months. That getting into a
Mm-hmm.
consistent habit. One of the things that I encourage my coaching clients to do is to schedule that time in their calendars where they can just have that time to think,
Mm-hmm.
and protect it like they would any other meeting. So they're giving themselves that space because it can be difficult to get space just to do that. Or some people
Mm-hmm.
feel that because they're not moving, they're not busy, they're not
Mm-hmm.
doing something physical, that it's time wasting.
Yeah, yeah. And it's not time wasting at all. And I
No,
would say,
no.
yeah, and I would say too, to be very mindful of how we view things, because the mind, the body, the spirit, and the soul, it learns from each other, and it even learns from what we don't do. So if we're not taking the time for ourselves, and we think it's a waste of time, even though we're not saying it, but our being interprets it that we're not worth the time.
Mm, yeah. And then also the message it sends out to other people as well that they can
Yeah.
encroach on that. Yeah. Mm,
Yeah, so true. Yeah, so it's not always, even though the words that we say clearly matters, but it's also what is not said too.
mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Now this has been a great conversation. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And if people want to find out more about you and your work, where's the best place for them to go?
Yeah, yeah. The best place that they can go, they can find me on LinkedIn, Sharon D. Brown, or they can
Mm,
either go to my website, Self Care U Academy, where they can find out, much more about me and what I do, and whether or not they want to join my circle, which is for entrepreneurs and executives, so that they can have a place, I kind of call it to lay their head, as someone who wants to focus on self care. Because again, it's not selfish at all. And the
mm,
more that we are taking care of ourselves, the more that we're able to do what we're called to do it. Because without it, then we can end up losing ourselves and then losing our calling as well.
Yeah. And before we finish, what can we do or what could be done? Like I talked about how brushing our teeth has been something that has just become a ritual that we do without really thinking about it. How could we, like the next generations that are coming up, young children, embed that in part of their experience that self-care is important so that when they get to adulthood and enter the workplace and in demanding roles, that it's something that has been embedded and is a thing they do without sort of even
Yeah.
thinking too much about it.
Yeah, I would say to embed it is by doing it. It would be a
Mm,
combination of one, you actively doing it. Just like, I mean, we know that, exercising is a part of self-care as well. And let's just say when it comes to reflecting, or for those who may have, meditation as a part, yes, you can invite, let's say, a kid to do it, but more so, just do it. Then eventually they will want to do it. And then along with that, I would say to incorporate experiences and stories, and like storytelling. It can be
mm,
your own personal experience, or it can be, experience of someone else, to integrate like whatever lesson that you're trying to convey. So it's a combination of doing, and I would say, and of storytelling. They may match at times, they may coincide. It may not always be at the same time, but it allows
mm,
it to get embedded, because people are going to, oh yeah, I remember my mom's told me this. You see what I'm saying? And then by doing it, even if they leave in the doing part, most of the time for most people that I've dealt with, either personally or professionally, they'll end up going back to what they quote unquote have experienced, because it becomes a part of the experience too. So that's how it gets embedded. It's the experience that they
mm.
have. So that means that the adult will need to be intentional about their own self-care. It's the repetition of the rituals, and to have storytelling a part of it to be embedded.
Yeah, so parents need to model that behavior, don't they? Uh,
Hmm.
and I think that's the case in our workplaces as well, that I know more organizations are increasingly looking at well-being and enjoying that, they've got well-being practices in place. But I do think that there's still a long way to
Oh
go
yeah.
because, the culture, many organizations are that, you've got to be available 24/7 and, you know, constantly as technology has advanced that people expecting instant responses or to do things instantly, which adds to it. So I do think there's still a lot of work to go in embedding it as part of organizational culture.
Yeah, most definitely. Organizations, like you said, things are in place, but still have a long way to go. I definitely agree with that.
Mhm. Great. Well, thank you so much, Sharon. It's been a pleasure talking to you. And listeners, do go check Sharon out. We'll put the links to where you can find her in the show notes, but do go and check her out and check out her academy as well,
Yeah, most
because you've
definitely. I
got what you
definitely,
need.
yeah, I definitely enjoy in speaking with you and sharing, my experiences and everything with the audience.
Thank you.